Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies, and Zack Wheeler is officially done for the year. How did the Phillies possibly still reach their ceiling? We'll talk about it on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me from some of my other work in the sports talk space. I've been on air over at 97.5 The Fanatic doing sports talk radio for over 5 years now. I've been a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member for the past 4 seasons, and this is now my 4th year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure that if you're checking us out in podcast form, you're rating and reviewing. You can get Locked On Phillies wherever you get your podcasts, and you can also watch the show on YouTube. And if you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button on the videos you like. I appreciate that very much, and it'll get you notifications when new episodes are posted. So it's free, it's easy, it helps you out, and it helps us out here on Locked On Phillies. This episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Visit 5hewin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. All right, so it's Sunday. The Phils have another game against the Nationals in their 3-game series. They have split the first 2. But I needed to hop on here and get an episode going because we got the news on Zack Wheeler. And unfortunately, I think it was the news that most of us, like deep down, if you had asked us, honestly, what do you expect? He's probably done. And he is. We're going to talk about that. I'll read you a statement from the Phillies. So we'll talk about what this means in general for the team, for Wheels, his future, anything like that. So we will lead off with that. We also are going to talk about Jhoan Duran blowing his first save as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies and having a bit of a sketchy one last night, Saturday as well in Game 2. So he's human. How worried should we be? Well, we'll discuss. And Aaron Nola made his second start back off the injured list. So his second start since May and looked better. So what does it mean? How much do we buy into it? There's a lot of stuff pitching-wise to get into in this episode. If you're like, well, Connor, they've been hitting the ball pretty well this series too, or hitting the ball all right at least. We will talk about the series. When the series is done, that will encompass everything, right? So this is just more of I needed to talk about Wheeler, and we'll fill you in on the series as it's going with the Nationals. But Zack Wheeler is done for the year. Here's the statement from the Philadelphia Phillies. Right-handed pitcher Zack Wheeler had a follow-up evaluation and received second opinions this week after a successful right upper extremity blood clot removal on Monday, August 18th. Wheeler was diagnosed with venous thoracic outlet syndrome, and the recommendation is to undergo thoracic outlet decompression surgery in the coming weeks. So another procedure for Wheeler. Details of the surgery are forthcoming. The timeline of recovery from the surgery is generally 6 to 8 months. So here's the most important thing. They are continuing to diagnose Zack Wheeler, give him the best possible options for his health, everything of that nature, right? This is more important than just baseball. So in the grand sense of we should all hope that Zack Wheeler is healthy and okay as a person, this is good news. Now for the Philadelphia Phillies, obviously this does not help them this season. We're all pulling for Wheels. Hopefully he ends up all good by the end of this. Now it's August, right? So 6 months, September, October, November, December, January, February, could be ready by March. Could be ready by May if it's at the back end where it's 8 months worth of time. But that's the full recovery for that. He might miss the start of next year. So he's absolutely not pitching again this season, and he should not pitch again this season. It's a scary condition, and we'll see how he even recovers, because this is what I want to talk about, right? There's a real chance that Zack Wheeler never recovers from this, right? He never comes back. At least he never looks like who he was before. Remember, if you know the symptoms, I guess the medical name for the issue, thoracic outlet syndrome, the Sixers had a situation with that. Markelle Fultz, former number 1 overall pick of the Philadelphia 76ers, had thoracic outlet syndrome. And never looked the same, really. Like, now there were a lot of other issues with that, and that's for the folks on Locked On Sixers to talk about. But my point is this. This is something that could throw guys off significantly with how things feel, how things work, how your body moves, and what's healthy or not for you to participate in. So that's troubling for Zack Wheeler. And he's already said that the end of this contract, he's going to be done. So let's look at where we're at right now. We have no Zack Wheeler for the rest of the year. He might miss part of next year. It might be a good chunk of next year, depending on how the recovery goes. This timeline could easily be extended because I want Zack Wheeler alive. I don't really care about him throwing a baseball as much as I care about him being alive and well for his family. All right. And then 2027, we've talked about it on this podcast many times, but it could be a work stoppage year. Like, it could be a strike year for the players. And that would lead to maybe even losing a significant part or all of the 2027 season, which is Wheeler's final year under contract. So could you imagine just like he has a setback, he misses all of next year out of an abundance of precaution or an abundance of caution, I guess I should say. And then there's a strike in 2027, and all of a sudden Zack Wheeler never throws for the Phillies again. I know I'm coming up with this doomsday scenario, but I'm just trying to build proper expectations that this is not just, hey, he hurt his knee. We get this surgery. He's ready in 6 months, whatever. Let's roll. No, this is a legitimate, scary medical condition that's going to take a while. So now, and I know Phillies fans are doing this, right? Because I got text messages during radio shows. I got responses and replies and comments to the podcast. We don't know what's going on with Wheeler. We're not doctors. He could be back. He could be fine. This could be like just a quick turnaround. And I've been telling you, my assumption was he's going to be done. And that assumption is correct. But I can't blame Phillies fans for wanting to be positive, right? I can't blame you for saying, what if the best case scenario happens and he's fine? What if we're all overreacting to this and everything like that? And obviously the health is first and foremost. So don't take this as putting his baseball over his health. But like, there were Phillies fans who believed the best could happen and he could be back quickly. And now we all have to come to terms with the fact that Zack Wheeler is no longer pitching for this baseball team. So what does it mean? Well, your World Series odds are significantly, significantly lowered. You just lost one of the top 3 to 5 pitchers in the National League, right? And I would have him way up there when it comes to where he ranks in the National League as far as starting pitching. Christopher Sanchez has been very good. He's now the ace. Guys like Aaron Nola, Jesus Luzardo, and Ranger Suarez, and Taijuan Walker are going to have to continue to step up. They're going to have to pitch at their best from pretty much now, at the end of August, to the end of October. That's a 2-month stretch where you're going to need above what their watermark is from those guys, right? You can't just have a middling rotation. You got to have dudes step up because that was the strength of this team, and that's how they were winning games. So I don't know. We're going to talk later on in the episode about Aaron Nola looking better in his second start back because I liked what I saw from Aaron Nola yesterday, but he's not ready to just like step into a playoff rotation right now. Maybe he'll get there, but we're not there yet. Taijuan Walker, his start against the Nationals on Friday, not bad, but 3-run home run in the first inning, you're immediately down, and it just reminds you, oh, yeah, okay. So this guy's been pretty darn good for the Phillies this year, but he's also a dude that can implode at any minute, as is Jesus Luzardo, as is Ranger Suarez. You pretty much have one sure thing right now in the rotation, and it's Christopher Sanchez. And, hey, that's a better sure thing than most teams in baseball have. So I'm not saying it's a bad place to be, but the Phillies are in a tough spot. I want to wrap this up with one thing that does not have anything to do with Zack Wheeler, but it is a proof of point of why some people need to listen better as to how baseball works. This Zack Wheeler thing, nobody could have seen coming. You cannot prepare for it. You cannot expect it. So the Phillies are dealing with these unforeseen circumstances that crush their World Series potential. Now, do they still have a chance? Yes. Is it a good chance? No. And that's where we're at right now. But my point is this, right? To anyone who is looking at the trade deadline and saying you need to go all in, You need to acquire more. Go get Eugenio Suarez. Go get another reliever and build this bullpen up and make it monstrous. Maybe add another just defensive player in the outfield, right? Just you need more because this is potentially Kyle Schwarber's last year and JT's last year and Castellanos maybe could be moved and Rangers last year and all of this stuff, right? You want this team to win and you want them to win now. And it's a big time spot. But John Middleton talked about this earlier in the year about how in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? 9, 10, 11, they made great moves. They made great acquisitions. And those players played well. And it just didn't work out. And John Middleton talked about that. And he's like, that's part of the risk of baseball. There's so much uncertainty. There's so much unforeseen that's going to happen to this team. There's so much you got to get hot versus be the better team. The Brewers are not the better team than the Dodgers right now. Tell me who's got the better record. Because the Brewers just got red hot and are rolling, right? Nobody would have predicted that. And that's why it's baseball. It's unpredictable. But I say that to say this. Could you imagine if you had traded Andrew Painter, Aiden Miller, Justin Crawford, and you had gone out and gotten like 2 more big-time players, and you empty your farm system for this year, and then Zack Wheeler goes down? Immediately, the conversation once you lose Zack Wheeler is, are we good enough to win the World Series? It doesn't feel like we are because we lost one of, if not our best arms in the staff in general. And that is not something they could have predicted. But because Dave Dombrowski went heavy on the bullpen, light in the outfield, and kept some prospects, you are now protected from the risk of something like this going wrong. And that's what you need to understand. You can't just trade everybody. You can't just trade everything. You have to make smart, prudent moves that help this team. And hopefully they're enough to pay off. And I'll tell you what, yesterday they were, but Friday night, not necessarily. Jhoan Duran, the big trade deadline acquisition, was touched up a little bit on Friday night. And it was kind of unlucky. But we'll talk about how Phillies fans should, this is going to be a therapy session, how you react to watching Jhoan Duran blow his first save as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies. We knew it was coming. And also, I got to give a shout out to a former Philly as well as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Let's talk about 5-Hour Energy. Time to fuel up and turn it up with 5-Hour Energy Transfusion. This grape, ginger, and lime-flavored shot brings the iconic taste of a golf course favorite to a non-alcoholic boost. Perfect for sinking birdies or making great memories with friends. It's a hole-in-one for your energy game. Whether you're out on the course or just need a little extra push to power through your day, 5-Hour Energy Transfusion delivers the clubhouse flavor you love without ever leaving the green. I'm going to head out to the golf course later on this afternoon. I've had a long weekend doing a bunch of stuff, watching the Phillies, bouncing around some family stuff. A little tired. You know what? I could use it. And it's better than having that actual transfusion with the alcohol and everything in it that makes my game worse. No, focusing in more and using 5-Hour Energy makes my game better. Where you know it, greens in regulation, fairways in regulation, and I've never been more focused. Golf is all about good times with good people and good flavors. The grape ginger lime flavor of 5-Hour Energy Transfusion gives you the best parts of your clubhouse go-to without leaving the course or chasing down the bev cart. Now you can amp up the fun even more. Just buy, snap, and enter for a chance to win a dream golf trip for 2 to any golf tournament in the USA. Tee up that trip. Visit 5HEWin.com for full rules and entry. No purchase necessary. Excludes the Masters tournament. Ends October 31st, 2025. Check it out with 5-Hour Energy. All right. How do we react to Jhoan Duran blowing his first save as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies? Hopefully, rationally. But as it was once said in Hustle by Adam Sandler, well, at least Philadelphia fans are calm and rational people. No, we're not. So that's okay. So first and foremost, weird stuff with the Nationals and Duran. I don't know what it is with them, but they're the same team that hit the comebacker off his foot. They're the same team. Like last night, they gave him a little bit of trouble. It's just, I don't know, man. I don't know what it is about this team, but they just see him better than it looks like the average group of players who would face Duran coming in the 9th inning. Now, it was not necessarily like his fault on Friday night when he blew that first save, right? So why I say it was not necessarily his fault. Sometimes you make the right pitch. Sometimes you throw well and you just get beat and you just got to tip your cap, right? It's like getting out on a ball that a guy brings back from being a home run. You didn't put a bad swing on the baseball. He just made a great play. That's the reality of sometimes in the sport. And Duran pitched well. I liked what he was doing for the most part on Friday night when he blew the save against the Nationals. They were just poking it down the line, like kind of check swing, excuse me, swings, and getting lucky. And it's wild because they did the same thing last night where it was a double down the first base line that was barely fair, a double down the third base line that was barely fair. And actually, that might have been a single. Bottom line is, it's weird. They've just been lucky off of Duran, and Duran has been unlucky, and that's going to happen. Now, there's no reason to be concerned whatsoever at all, right? Like, I don't want to see anybody turn on Jhoan Duran. Now, what we've learned is he's human, and maybe this is a good lesson in humility for folks like me who believed he would never, ever give up a hit or a run or anything, ever look anything better than the best closer in baseball, or worse than the best closer in baseball. I was expecting him to basically just mow guys down all year long, and that's short-sighted. But I got caught up in the excitement of having a closer like Jhoan Duran, and I'm sure a lot of you did too. Now, what you can't have happen, you don't want excitement to turn to anger, right? He is not a problem whatsoever, and he will not be a problem at all this year. Now, there may be a time in the postseason where something like that happens, and it's a big spot, and he just gives up a run or two, and that's ideally not what happens. And he's got like a 1 and change ERA, so it's not like this is an often thing for him, but you just got to be prepared for that to be a possibility. I think last night was another good example, but Friday night, the prime example of him getting touched up a little bit and losing the game. That's a good example for Phillies fans of like, okay, we still need to, you can't just mail it in and say this game's over when Duran steps on the mound. It pretty much is over. It's close to being over, but there's still work to be done. Now, how has he been getting hit by the Washington Nationals? Well, I do want to critique a little bit of the pitch decision-making by Duran. This is just me, right? And who am I to critique him and JT Realmuto and their decision-making on what pitches they're throwing when? They know a whole lot more than I do about what pitches guys like, what pitches they don't, what's working that day, just everything, right? So, but just from a general baseball theory, here is what I've been seeing with Duran. I think he likes his knuckle curve a little bit too much. And it's a great pitch, right? It is such a good counter to the fastball splinker combo. But it seemed the tough thing is if you miss with 103, it's still 103. If you miss with 98, 99 with movement, it's still 98, 99 with movement, right? So those are still near impossible pitches to hit unless you just fight them off and send them down the line somehow and you get super lucky 3 times in a row and then maybe you score a run. But the knuckle curve is just like the velocity is not equal to that of the other one. So if you're considering about sitting on a breaking ball and you miss your spot a little bit, it is much easier to go bat to ball on that speed of a pitch than the hard stuff. Now you got to mix it in, right? So I'm not saying don't throw it. I just get the feeling that he throws it for the sake of switching it up, even when he has some guys that just have no chance on the splinker or the four-seam fastball at 102 on 103. I just think the pitch selection could be a little bit better for Jhoan Duran. That's just me. Now, maybe JT's seeing something I'm not. Maybe Duran knows something about his pitches and what he likes against certain guys that I don't. Actually, I'd be willing to say that definitely both of those scenarios are true, where those guys are at a more privileged spot by information, right? I do not know as much as JT or Duran, but from what I'm seeing, I think we could do with a little bit less knuckle curve, a little bit more heat. I feel like the manager in Major League. All right, screw the soft stuff, Ricky. Give him the heater. Talking to Ricky Vaughn. but that's kind of what I want to see. And maybe, you remember I said I got hyped up and caught up in the wave and everything and thought he wasn't human and would never, ever blow a save opportunity. Maybe this is still me being caught up in the hype and wanting to see 103 every time. You do have to vary it a little bit. You got to throw that knuckle curve, and you got to throw the splinter, and you got to make those pitches all work, and that's when he's at his best. But we will see how that all plays out as he continues. The one other thing that I thought about on Friday night, I believe I mentioned it in my post-game immediate reaction video, which you can see on YouTube Shorts. The Brad Lidge perfect season back in 2008, how much more impressive is that now? You got a dude that throws 103 with a 98, 99 mile an hour changeup that moves and a nasty wipeout breaking ball. And he hasn't been here for a month, and he's already blown a save. Brad Lidge just went out there in 2008 and was as dominant as any reliever has probably ever been for a single year stretch, right? Like, it's almost unbelievable to think about, oh, yeah, well, Duran was going to blow one eventually. Wait, Brad Lidge went, 48 for 48, including the postseason? Like, it's flat out ridiculous what he was able to do. And closing out the World Series and dropping to his knees as Carlos Ruiz runs out to the mound. Like, yeah, that's one of the great performances in the history of the Philadelphia Phillies. So if anything we learn from this Jhoan Duran first blown save, it can happen to anybody. And that is why it's even more impressive what Brad Lidge did back in 2008 to carry that Phil's bullpen. Shout out Ryan Madsen as well and JC Romero and those guys. But to go perfect for a season, we're probably never going to see that again for the Philadelphia Phillies. So just a fun little smile of like, wow, that really was a special season, wasn't it? You can always dream that it could happen again. Well, coming up next, a big part of that dream is a starting rotation. We talked about Zack Wheeler and the unfortunate news that he's done for the next 6 to 8 months, right? That's a long time for recovery. He is done for the year. He will not throw again. Aaron Nola is back, though, and will throw again, and threw yesterday and looked better. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of patience will be able to go a long way with Aaron Nola. We will talk about how we should be patient, how we shouldn't be patient as we wrap up today's episode. So Aaron Nola threw again yesterday, and his velocity was up. That's the number one thing to talk. I don't care. Dude, you could give up bombs. Like, whatever. And he did give up 2 home runs, right? I don't care about that. I care about velocity right now. I need to know he's healthy. And then we'll start to get into the conversation because he's pitched 2 times at the major league level now, including yesterday's start, since May. I know he had his little rehab stint, but it's not the same thing as pitching at the major league level against this type of competition, right? Even the Nationals, who are not a great team, have guys a billion times better than any you'll find in AAA. So the movement, the pitch sequence, the spots, that will come with time, right? That I'm willing to be more patient on. But if he comes out and he's throwing 87 like he was his first day back against the Nationals last Sunday, well, you can't do anything about that. You can't just create velo, right? If he doesn't have it, you start to worry about injury, nagging injury carryover from his time on the injured list. And the next thing you know, it's like, well, can we even use this guy in the postseason? So he threw a pitch at 94 yesterday. That is significantly better. I mean, that's great velo for where he was at earlier in the year. He was at like 91, 92 earlier in the year. 93, 94 plays a little bit more. And that's where we've seen him kind of live the past couple of years. It's like 93 to maybe 95 if he really gasses one up. So is Aaron Nola back to his regular velocity? Maybe. He might be getting more into the swing of things, more balanced and recovering and everything. His body needs to get used to, hey, not just I'm throwing my rehab start, but I'm throwing every 5 days or every 5 games in a major league rotation. That takes a little bit of time. So building his strength back up by working through it seems to be working for Aaron Nola. He also wasn't bad as far as his location and everything. He got hit around a little bit by the Nationals, and I don't think anyone's expecting Aaron Nola to be like a Cy Young caliber pitcher the rest of the way. No, that's not going to happen. We just need him to be serviceable. And maybe if we can build enough good starts together, we start to feel good enough about his chances to step on the mound in a big spot in October, whether that's starting or otherwise. And I don't think he's going to go to the bullpen, but Nola got the win yesterday and took care of business on the mound and had solid numbers. So for everyone who was worried about him imploding in 2 1/3 innings in his first start back with the Philadelphia Phillies, you need to have a little bit of patience. That's just a reminder, right? We're not just going to evaluate Nola over one start because if you looked at his first start, we should give up on him. But last night, 6 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. He did give up 2 home runs. We know he's a home run guy. Threw 97 pitches. Looks solid, right? That's all you really need from him. 6 innings, 2 earned. We'll take that 10 times out of 10. And he can even get better than what he was. Like, this is not the peak that Aaron Nola is going to be at least you hope. Knock on wood, cross your fingers, whatever you need to do. But if Aaron Nola begins to pitch like the guy that we thought he could be at the start of the year, right? Before we went through all the major blow-ups at the start of the season, before we went through the ankle injury and then the cold and then the rib injury and then he's gone forever and we never see him. There was faith that he could be the number 2 pitcher in this rotation behind Zack Wheeler. Christopher Sanchez, number 3, or vice versa. But either way, Nola was higher in the conversation than Ranger, higher in the conversation than Luzardo, higher in the conversation, much, much higher than Taijuan Walker. And that's because he has the talent in there somewhere. He's just got to get to one of those good stretches. And anyone who's going to evaluate him based on this last start is as crazy as the people who are evaluating him based on Sunday start. I'm not telling you everything's fine with Aaron Nola. All I'm saying is we should have gone into this, and I said as much a couple weeks ago. I'm going to wait 2 to 3 starts to really evaluate what Aaron Nola is giving you. Right now we've seen 2, 1 good, 1 bad. So we need a rubber match just like a 3-game series, and that will come your way when Nola toes the rubber this next week, and we will see if he can put together another good performance or if it's like, oh, okay, if not, we're going to say we're on the seesaw. And we've seen that before with pitchers in this rotation as well. Luzardo, Ranger, and big upside, big downside for the Philadelphia Phillies starting rotation right now outside of Christopher Sanchez. So we'll see how that all plays out. But meanwhile, and just to move on from the Aaron Nola thing real quick and just talk about the team, the Phils are 21 games over 500. They are a monstrous team, even without Zack Wheeler for the past week and without him for the rest of the year and with guys moving in and out of the lineup and the outfield rotation and everything. Shout out Harrison Bader with a big game last night, by the way. He's been a little bit upset about playing time, it sounds like. Well, he got an opportunity. He took advantage. Rob Thompson's been pushing the buttons, right? They have the 4th best record in all of baseball. They're 5.5 off the Milwaukee Brewers for best record in baseball. The Phillies are. And in the division, they're currently holding a 6-game lead still. And they're just continuing to cut down on that magic number. The Phils are at 75 wins, and we are not even done August yet. They'll be higher than that by the time it's done. And if they just can win like 15 games in September, they're going to be a team that is in the mid-90s marks, wins this division, and could even be the 2 seed in the National League. And that's what you need, right? You need that first-round bye to set up your rotation. So for all the worries that the Phillies are going through right now and all the uncertainty as they try and put the pieces together for a major postseason run that will have implications for years and years of this franchise to come, things are relatively going pretty darn well. All right? So just sometimes you guys see the forest through the trees. We got through a bunch of topics about pitching and the good and the bad and everything, but at the end of the day, if the baseball team wins, the baseball team wins. And last night, the baseball team won. We will see if they can win the series against the Nationals today. Big time spot for the Philadelphia Phillies, especially considering the same Nats team took 2 or 3 from the Mets. You don't want that to happen. So we send Ranger Suarez to the mound against Jake Irvin. Cross our fingers and hope that he gives us another stellar performance like he did against Seattle. that's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for joining us. Once again, we come to you as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're going to try and do a crossover episode with Ryan Finkelstein of Locked On Mets for tomorrow to preview the series with the Mets. So we will get into that. And make sure you check out Mark Farzetta, who's available exactly here on the Locked On Phillies YouTube channel and on the Locked On Phillies podcast feed, postcast. So he does immediate reactions live after every game. So check that all out. And I will talk to you tomorrow on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.